I mean, who would have thought we would end up here? 10 videos in, 9 months later, and we're still sitting here talking about plastic molding and electronic manufacturing. Just to put that in perspective, since the first video I posted about this back in August 2017, we could have grown a human in that time. But with that off my chest, let's get into update number 28 for the backers of View glasses. Now for May, View have titled their update Pre-Production Work, but I'd like to call it Human Error or I Told You So. Let's find out why. So as we talked about in the last update, any issues to do with components were all fine. They'd sourced them all, they'd replaced the factories, they were ready to go and start something called pre-production, which instead of just rolling out manufacturing on thousands and thousands of units to have an issue occur in all of them, they slowly ramp up. So in May we saw the first run of pre-production units, which consists of 40 glasses. Of the 40 pairs of glasses which were manufactured, View have said there was a yield rate of 50%. If you remember, we've talked about yield rate before, it's basically a failure rate. So of the 40 pairs of glasses, 20 of them were broken. But let's just take a look at the breakdown of what was wrong with those individual units. So View have said, to break it down into more detail, here are the observations from the pre-production runs. 25% of the boards worked perfectly off the line. 25% had bugs that could be immediately addressed and fixed. 25% had problems that could only be fixed by redoing the run. 25% were unable to be repaired.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but
Now from the 50% that haven't worked, it's allowed them to do some inspections and make some changes, and they're now predicting that with the changes in place, the yield rate should be upwards of 90%. Now the reason we mentioned human error is they said a big reason to do with this low yield rate as well is literally caused by the staff in the factories who are manufacturing the components for them. So as you might remember from a few videos ago, we had a look at when they were ordering in components, and you could see that small electronic components actually come on like reels, and they're fed into machines which place them onto the board and so on. So it turns out the staff in the factory actually forgot to replace those reels of components. So a lot of the boards went through and were just missing a lot of components. As well as that, they've also said there were reels which are actually put in completely the wrong place, which means they go onto the wrong part of the board and it just doesn't work at all. So to address these issues, they've had to go in and do a large amount of retraining for the staff at the factory. Now, although this is annoying and somewhat funny, I guess the two things to take away from this is one, I mean, this is largely down to the factory, not to do with View themselves. It's something that's outside of their control that they're now actively trying to fix by going in and retraining staff in the factory. And number two, it's not something View would actually have to really tell us about. We've talked in the past about how detailed these updates are, and from all the ones we've looked at, 10 of them now, I can really say they've never really sugarcoated anything. If something's wrong, you know, they've been open about it every time. There's been pictures, there's been details. Yes, their time estimates are a little bit off, but I have to say it's somewhat commendable that they're so upfront with all of these details, especially when it's something that most companies would likely just not tell you. Now, while on the subject of electronics manufacturing, View are also addressing a question which they keep being asked about why this electronic manufacturing process is taking so long compared to some other projects that people have been following and have got results a lot quicker. Basically what they've said, because of the size of the electronics in the View glasses to make it as small and as thin as possible, they've not been able to use anything which is existing. A lot of other projects can go to an existing factory, use existing components. The time frames are a lot quicker. They've had to redesign everything on this to make it as small as possible to make sure that people aren't wearing giant glasses on their face. So the added time we're seeing to the manufacturing process of this product is literally because they're the first people to do it. They're kind of pioneering the way for a new era of smart glasses compared to some of the larger ones out there, like the Zungul sunglasses, for example. Next we go on to the case, something that we've discussed in like 3 videos now, and I really don't think it needs as much screen time as this. It's not the main aspect of the product, it's something you're going to put it in maybe overnight to charge, maybe to put it in to carry around. Nevertheless, let's have a look at the case. So what I've said, and something we discussed in the last video, is some additional time which they were given because of the plastic molding process. Had given them a little bit of extra time to work on the glasses case design, which as of the last update was finalised, and of this one they've now gone into the T0 mold production. Now compared to the list of issues that they had with the T0 versions of the glasses frames, they've actually said the T0 versions for the case have actually come out pretty good for a very first draft version. Essentially there were a few anomalies, a couple of deformities with the case, a couple of scuff marks and some cosmetic issues, but all things which can be quickly addressed either by making small adjustments to the mold machine or to the glasses mold itself. nothing that requires them to go back to the redesign phase. Now, a good sign that the entire project is making progress is we've got some new pictures released this month. What I've got so far with the frame mold, the case mold, and everything else, they've actually been able to put together some beauty shots of an almost finished product. Something they're highlighting here is that this is actually a beauty shot photo. It's not a 3D rendering. This is like a real life picture of a finished product. So firstly, you have the classic frames. And it's something they've not shown too much, which has concerned me because these are the ones I've ordered, but it's good to see that they do exist and they are on the same progression path, is the trendy glasses. So next they go on to talk about the frames. As we said in the last few videos, the plastic molding process was fine. They produced the T0s, the T1s, the T2s, and these have also gone into a pre-production run so that they can start producing small amounts and then ramp it up. However, what they noticed in the pre-production run of this is that a few of the frames had actually cracked. Now again, not something they need to tell us, but this is literally down to human error. What they've said is during this pre-production run, the plastic that was used was actually an old batch of plastic which had been left in the machine. What they've said is technically the type of plastic they're using should be durable and flexible so that it bends back and forth a good few times before it's even possible to crack the plastic. But the reason it's appeared in their pre-production run is somebody didn't purge the plastic from the last production.
What am I gonna do?
And it had been sat in the vat for what I can only assume was at least a few days, if not a few weeks. Apparently if you use old plastic, it comes out like this. So again, not something they really had to share with us. Good that they're being so transparent, and I guess it's just added an extra validation step into their manufacturing process to make sure it doesn't happen again and it's not going to affect any of us. Next, just a quick update to their IML process. We talked about this before. It's in-mold labeling, basically for anyone who's chosen any designs or colours on the side of the glasses arms. The first batch they received, the colours weren't quite right, they weren't quite as vibrant as they were expecting, gave some feedback and they were waiting for a second round. When they've received that, they said the results are much better this time and they're happy to go to production with these. Next, quite a massive update we've received on the app. I'd like to think someone over there at View is possibly listening to me, since it's one of the things we mentioned in the last video we'd like to get an update on. So we've actually now got a 52-second clip of somebody running through all the different features of the app, so we're going to have a look at that and just make some observations and break it down a little bit. So firstly, you can see that they're launching the View app, and it's actually from an Android phone. One of the things we discussed is that last we heard they were making progress with the iOS version, but hadn't heard anything about Android, yet the first demonstration they're showing is on an Android device, so that's a good sign. So we're still unsure if this is a completely finished version, but after launching, go straight into the glasses option, which looks like in the bottom left, and the couple of options you've got, you can see it's connected through Bluetooth, the battery percentage on the glasses, find my glasses, and change them into silent mode. There's a small picture button there as well, but I'm not sure what that's going to do. Obviously the glasses don't have a camera in, it's not going to take a picture from them, who knows. So clicking on the find my glasses option, it's kind of a different way to like find my phone on the iOS system. It's not literally going to show you a map of where they are, it's just going to start emitting a high frequency sound from the glasses and have the app tell how far away you are from that sound. And then the radius at the top just looks like a strange game of Marco Polo, just telling you how far or close away you are from that sound. What I do like is that they give you a little bit of a celebration screen. Well done, you found your glasses.
Wow!
Next, what looks like the activity tracker, which currently doesn't look as in-depth as what you would get on, for example, like a Fitbit. It's just showing the amount of distance walked, the amount of calories burned, the amount of steps taken, and what times you were active between. Now it does say at the bottom view all, so it could go into a more in-depth version of this, but it's not been included in the demo, so it could be just something that's not finished yet. Something I would just note though is that in 46 steps the dude's managed to burn 93 calories. So it's either really impressive or not quite accurate information. Next actually looks like a fair amount to look at in the control screen. So firstly the touch controls, which will either be a tap, a double tap or a long hold on the glasses frame. So a list of functions they've got currently is report time, report active summary, launch Google Assistant, or do nothing. looks like each of those functions is interchangeable in the different types of touch controls, so you can customize it however you want. Next is just the volume control, but this just looks like it's the volume for the onboard assistant that you will hear through the View glasses and not actually the volume of the music played through them. Next, under notification settings, I'm not too sure, it's something we can only really speculate on at this point. It's talking about different flashing light patterns to indicate incoming calls, missed calls, and emails and text messages. So I'm not actually sure if they're talking about a flashing light actually on the glasses, because I mean, if you're wearing them, that's not going to help. You won't be able to see the light. Or if it's talking about the glasses case, which we know there is a light in the front of. And lastly, something they've not even talked about in any of the updates is some experimental features. So it looks like these are motion detection controls. So if you've got an incoming call, you can answer it either by shaking your head or nodding. If you're listening to music and wanting to shuffle, you can shuffle the songs just by, I guess, shaking your head erratically.
Thank you.
And then it just says on detection sound. So if anyone wants to hazard a guess at what that is, leave it in the comments down below. And the last page just seems to be your personal profile, so you enter your gender, date of birth, height, weight, all of those details will be required for the activity monitor, because obviously height depends on how big your strides are, it calculates how many steps you've taken and so on. Looks like you can change your profile picture within this part of the app, see which pair of glasses you're connected to. Maybe eventually you'll have a regular pair of subscription glasses and some sunglasses and you want to swap between them, you can do that in this part. And then lastly, activity goal, so similar to a Fitbit, you can set it to like 10,000 steps a day and it will notify you when you've hit that goal. Stand-up reminder. Again, anyone wants to take a guess, I'm happy for you to leave it down below. Maybe that's like an alarm to wake you up in the morning. And then lastly, connect accounts. So after not receiving any updates on the app since February this year, it's nice to get a full run through of what they've got so far, with just a couple of features we're unsure about, but hopefully we'll get some updates on those in the future. What seemed to be quite a quick update is now turning into a fairly long video, so if you're still watching, thanks for bearing with us. So another thing they've touched on this month is actually they're looking into couriers, which I guess is a good sign, shows how far we're progressing, that they're actually looking at shipping now. But namely, they're talking about how complicated this shipping process will actually be. Unlike shipping any other electronic device where they're all standard and a courier can pretty much just grab any of them off the shelf and send it to anyone, obviously these are all very specific to certain people, depending on the options they chose, the colour, the prescription lenses, all of that. So a very specific product needs to go to a very specific person. Effectively, they're just saying this results in more work for the courier, so they're still looking into which courier they're going to go with at the moment, because they need to make sure that one, they're going to be able to do it, and two, they're going to be able to do it right. And lastly, the I told you so part. Timelines. So again, as always, when it comes to timeline, I just read their explanation exactly because I don't want to skew or give any incorrect information when it comes to their timelines. The yield rate issues have pushed us behind again, but we're already in the process of addressing the concerns appropriately. After implementing changes from the 40-unit pre-production run in May, we are now preparing for a run of 100 units in June. After assessing yield rate, we'll be able to move to a batch of 1,000 units in July and can begin shipping. We'll then ramp up each batch and ship progressively. As always, we'll keep you posted, we're almost there. So, update to the timeline is that a larger scale production will take place in July, where they'll start to look at shipping out a few units. So effectively, for the majority of people, depending on which one you bought into, the early bird package, just a regular pre-order, it's going to vary in delivery date a lot. So I guess all we can do is keep an eye on their updates to do with timelines. So that's it for this month. It looks like they're not even setting themselves delivery timelines anymore, just production timelines. So if anyone wants to hazard a guess, an estimated delivery date, more than happy for you to leave it down below. From a previous time I've asked this, people seem to be guesstimating around September 2018, which seems to be a fairly educated guess. It's somewhere around what I'm thinking, but I'd love to hear from you. But as always, if you enjoyed the update, remember to give it a thumbs up. To keep up to date with the project, remember to subscribe to the channel. Obviously, we don't just do this despite doing the 11th video on the View glasses. We look at Kickstarter and Indiegogo and crowdfunding projects in general, of which we've backed a few recently. So if it's the kind of content you enjoy, remember to subscribe. But as always, thanks for watching, and I shall see you in the next one.